Daf Yomi, Tractate Avodah Zarah, page 18. Continuing from yesterday, the bottom of 17b, last line said that the Romans brought Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion for judgment, and they said to him, "Why did you occupy yourself with the Torah?" Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion said to them, citing a verse, "As the Lord my God commanded me," Deuteronomy 4:5. They immediately sentenced him to death by means of burning, and they sentenced his wife to execution by decapitation, and his daughter was condemned to sit in a brothel. The Gemara explains the divine decree that he should receive this punishment. He was sentenced to death by burning, as he would, and now we're on the top of 18a, Yudchet Amud Aleph, with the words Hoge et Hashem be'otiotav. Pronounce the ineffable name of God with all its letters. Vehechi aved hachi atzanan elu she'en lahem chelek leolam haba. Ha'omer ein Torah min hashemayim ve'en tchiyat hametim min haTorah, אבל שאול אומר אף ההוגה את השם באותיותיו. The Gemara asks, and how could he do that? But didn't we learn in the Mishnah in Sanhedrin 90a? These are the people who have no share in the world to come. One who says that the Torah is not from heaven, or that there is no source from the Torah for the resurrection of the dead. Abba Shaul says also one who pronounces the ineffable name as it is written, with all its letters, has no share in the world to come. The Gemara answers, Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion did it to teach himself, as it is taught in a Braita with regard to the prohibition against sorcery. You shall not learn to do, Deuteronomy 18:9. This indicates, but you may learn to understand and to teach. In other words, certain prohibitions do not apply when one is acting only in order to acquire knowledge of the subject. Elamai taima enash mishum hoge, or in brackets, de hoge et shem befaresia. Hava v'ani ishtolari gadelo b'rechia machataba be מכאן אמרו כל מי שיש לו ידו למחות ואינו מחות נענש עליו. Rather, the Gemara asks, what is the reason that he was punished? The Gemara answers, he was punished because he would pronounce the ineffable name of God in public instead of privately. And his wife was condemned to execution by decapitation because she did not protest his doing so. From here the sages stated, anyone who has the capability to protest effectively the sinful conduct of another and does not protest is punished for that person's sin. V'alvito le'shemiku b'shuzoynois davar b'yochanan pamachas v'alvito v'aleches lefnei gadol leroimi omeru kama nois b'sioiser shel ribazo v'yad דקדקה והביאו עשהו. והיינו דאמר רבי שמעון ולא איש, מאי דכתיב עוון נקווה יסובני, עווינויס שאודם דוש בעקבו באוילם הזה, מסובין לו לאוילם הדין. The Gemara asks him, why was his daughter condemned to sit in a brothel? As Rabbi Yochanan says, once the daughter of Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion was walking before the nobles of Rome, and they said to each other, how pleasant are the steps of this young woman. Upon hearing this, she immediately took care to keep walking in such a fashion that her steps would continue to be pleasing to them, and this is the same as that which Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, what is the meaning of that which is written, the iniquity of my heel encircles me? Psalms 49:6. It means that the sins that a person tramples with one's heel in this world, meaning dismisses and pays no attention to them, as they seem to lack importance, for example, the way that one walks, come to encircle him on the day of judgment. הוא אמר, חצור תאמין פעלו, ואשתו אמרה, אל אמונה ואינה בן. בית אמרה, גדול הריסה ורב האליליה, אשר עיניך פקוחות על כל דרכי. אמר רבי, כמה גדולים צדיקים הללו, שנזדמנו להן שלוש מקרוי של צידוק הדין, בשעת צידוק הדין. The Gemara relates when the three of them went out after being sentenced, they accepted the justice of God's judgment. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion said, "The rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are justice." Deuteronomy 32:4, and his wife said, continuation of the verse, "A God of faithfulness and without iniquity." The daughter said, "Great in counsel and mighty in work, whose eyes are open upon all the ways of the sons of men, to give everyone according to his ways." Jeremiah 32:19. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said, "How great are these righteous people, that these three verses which speak of the acceptance of God's judgment occurred to them at the time of accepting the righteousness of his judgment." Tanu Avanan, Kishachal Yehoshua ben Kisma, Halachal Chanina ben Tradion Lakaro, Amalo, Chanina Achi, Iyata Yodea, Sheuma Zov min hashamayim, Himluchua, Shechliva et beito, Yisarfa et Hechalo, והרגה את חסידה ביהודה הטובה, עדיין היא קיימת, ואני שמעתי עליך, שאתה יושב ועוסק בתורה, ומקים קהילות ברבים, וספר מונח לך בחיקך. The sages taught when Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma fell ill. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion went to visit him. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma said to him, "Chanina, my brother, do you not know that this nation has been given rain by a decree from heaven? The proof is that Rome has destroyed God's temple, and burned his sanctuary, and killed his pious ones, and destroyed his best ones, and it still exists. Evidently, all of this is by divine decree. And yet, I heard about you, that you sit and engage in Torah study, and convene assemblies in public, and have a Torah scroll placed in your lap, thereby demonstrating complete disregard for the decrees issued by the Romans." Amru lo min hashamayim yirachamu. Amar lo, ani omer lecha devarim shel ta'am, ואתה אומר לי מן השמיים ירחמו. תמה אני, אם לא ישרפו אותך את ספר תורה באש. אמר לו, "Rabbi, מה אני לחיי העולם הבא?" Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion said to him, "Heaven will have mercy and protect me." Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma said to him, "I am saying reasonable matters to you, and you say to me, heaven will have mercy? I wonder if the Romans will not burn both you and your Torah with scroll by fire." Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion said to him, "My teacher, what will become of me? Am I destined for life in the world to come?" Amar lo, klum ma'aseh ba liadecha. Amar lo, ma'ot shel Purim nitchalfu li b'ma'ot shel tzedakah והילקטים וחילקתים לעניים. אמר לו, אם כן, לחלקך היא חלקה, מגורלך היא גורלי. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma said to him, did any special incident occur to you which might serve as an indication? Chanina ben Tradion said to him, "I confused my own coins that I needed for the festivities of Purim with coins of charity, and I distributed them all to the poor at my own expense." Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma said to him, if that is so, may my portion be of your portion, and may my lot be of your lot. Amaru lo hayu yamim muatim ad sheniftar Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma. The sages said, not even a few days passed before Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma died of his illness. הספידו הספד גדול ובחזרתם מצאו לרבי חנינא בן תרדיון שהוא יושב ועוסק בתורה ומכיר כי לא הספד רבים וספר תורה מונח לו בחיקו. Not even a few days passed before Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma died of his illness, and all of the Roman notables went to bury him, and they eulogized him with a great eulogy. And upon their return, they found Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion, who was sitting and engaging in Torah study and convening assemblies in public, with a Torah scroll placed in his lap. Eviu uchrachuhu b'sefer Torah v'gifu v'chavile zimoirois v'yitzisu bahen esa'o eviu sefugin shel tzemer ושרו'ום במים יניחום על ליבו כדי שלא תצא נשמתו מהרה. אמרה לו ביתו, אבא, רקע וכך. אמר לה, אלמלא אני נשרפתי לבדי, היה הדבר קשה לי. עכשיו שאני שורף בספר תורה עמי, מי שבקש אל בונה של ספר תורה, הוא יבקש אל בוני. They brought him to be sentenced. They wrapped him in the Torah scroll and encircled him with bundles of branches, and they set fire to it. And they put tufts of wool and soaked them in water and placed them on his heart, so that his soul would not leave his body quickly, but he would die slowly and painfully. His daughter said to him, Father, must I see you like this? But Chanina ben Tradion said to her, if I alone were being burned, it would be difficult for me, but now that I am burned along with the Torah scroll, he who will seek retribution for the insult according to the Torah scroll will also seek retribution for the insult according to me. אמרו לו תלמידיו, רבי, מה אתה רואה? אמר להם, גיליון, on brackets it says גבילים, נשרפים באותיות פורחות. אף אתה פתח פיך, תיכנס בך האש. אמר להם מותג, שידלנה מן מי שנתנה ואל יחבל הוא בעצמו. His students said to him, Our teacher, what do you see? Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion said to them, I see the parchment burning, but its letters are flying to the heavens. They said to him, You too should open your mouth, and the fire will enter you, and you will die quickly. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion said to them, It is preferable that he who gave me my soul should take it away, and one should not harm oneself to speed his death. Amar lo Klatz Toneri. The Klatz Toneri, the executioner, said to him, Rabbi, imani marbe v'shalhevet v'notel sefuin shel tzemer miyal libecha אתה מביאני לחיי עולם הבא. אמר לו, הן, ישב לי, נשבע לו, מיד ילבע בשלהבת, ונטל ספוגין של צמר על ליבו, ויצא נשמתו במהרה. אף הוא קפץ ונפל לתוך האור. The executioner said, Master, if I increase the flame and take off the tufts of wool from your heart, so that you will die sooner and suffer less, will you bring me to the life of the world to come? Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion said to the executioner, Yes. The executioner said, Take an oath for me that what you say is true. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion took the oath for him, and the executioner immediately increased the flame and took off the tufts of wool from his heart, causing his soul to leave his body quickly. The executioner too leaped and fell into the fire and died. Yotzabat kol amra Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion Vekalitztoneri Vizumani Nechaye Olam Haba Bacha Rabbi Vaomer Yesh Kona Lamo B'Shachat Yesh Kona Lamo B'Chama Shanim. A divine voice emerged and said, Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion and the executioner are destined for the life of the world to come. Upon hearing this, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wept and said, there is one who acquires his share in the world to come in one moment, such as the executioner, and there is one who acquires his share in the world to come only for many years of toil, such as Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion. Bruria de Vitayu Dameir Parte Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion Habe אמרה לזילה במילתא יבטחתי בקובה של זונות שקל תרכבה דדינרי ויעזל אמר אילה יתאביד בה איסורה מתאביד or in brackets it says מתרחיש ניסה יעבדה איסורה לה יביד יתאביד or mitrachish la nisa. The Gemara relates Bruria, the wife of Rabbi Meir, was a daughter of Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion. She said to Rabbi Meir, it is a disrespectful matter for me that my sister is sitting in a brothel. You must do something to save her. Rabbi Meir took a vessel full of dinars and went. He said to himself, if no transgression was committed with her, a miracle will be performed for her. If she committed a transgression, no miracle will be performed for her. Amar le hishmi'ini or hishami li. Amar le tashtana ana. Amar le mitrachna or mitrach. Amar le נפישנו וכתוב האחה תשפירן מנאי אמר שמע מינה לא עבדה איסורה כל דעתי אמרה להכי. Rabbi Meir went and dressed as a Roman knight and said to her, accede to my wishes, meaning engage in intercourse with me. She said to him, I am menstruating and cannot. He said to her, I will wait. She said to him, there are many women in the brothel, and there are many women here who are more beautiful than I. He said to himself, I can conclude from her responses that she did not commit a transgression, as she presumably said this to all who come. Azal Gavish Shomer Dide Amarle Havana Le Amarle Mistafena Bimalchuta Amarle Shekol Tarkba Didinare Palga Palach Upalga Lehavelach Amarle Mechishami Mai Eabid Amarle Ema Elaha de Meiraneni Umitztalt Amarle. Rabbi Meir went over to her guard and said to him, give her to me. The guard said to him, I fear that if I do so, I will be punished by the government. Rabbi Meir said to him, take this vessel full of dinars, give half to the government as a bribe, and half will be for you. The guard said to him, but when the money is finished, what shall I do? Rabbi Meir said to him, say, God of Meir, answer me, and you'll be saved. The guard said to him, and now we turn to 18b, Yudchet Amud Bet, Mi Marhachi Ika, Amar Le, Hashta Chazit, Avodah Necho Kalbe Dehavuka Achlin Neshe, שהכלכלה שדל הוא, עבוד דעתי למחלה, אמר אלוה דמאיר ענני, שבקו ירבה לי. And who can say that this is the case, that I will be saved by this utterance? Rabbi Meir said to him, you will now see. There were 3 carnivorous dogs that would devour people. Rabbi Meir took a clod of earth, threw it at them, and when they came to devour him, he said, God of Meir, answer me. The dogs then left him alone. But after seeing this, the guard gave the daughter of Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion to Rabbi Meir. L'sof, ish demamilta bemalka, atuya skua lezikifa, amar Elah demeir aneni, achatu, amru le mai amru lehu hachi hava vaseh. Ultimately, the matter was heard in the king's court, and the guard who was brought and taken to be hanged said, God of Meir, answer me. They then lowered him down, as they were unable to hang him. They said to him, what is this? He said to them, this was the incident that occurred, and he proceeded to relate the entire story to them. Atuchakaku ledemute de Rabbi Meir apitcha de Romi amri kol lichaze lepartzufa aden laite yom achada chazoi rehuta batre rahat mikamayu al leve zonot ika de amri beshule goyim chaza תנמש בה ומתק בה. יקרא דאמרי, את אליהו ידמי להו כזונה. כרכתה, אמרי, חס ושלום, רבי מאיר הווה, לא הווה בידכי. They then went and engraved the image of Rabbi Meir at the entrance of Rome, where it would be seen by everyone. And they said, anyone who sees a man with this face should bring him here. One day, Romans saw Rabbi Meir and ran after him, and he ran away from them and entered a brothel to hide. Some say he then escaped capture because he saw food cooked by Gentiles and dipped his finger in the food and tasted it with the other finger, and thereby fooled them into thinking he was eating their food, which they knew Rabbi Meir would not do. And some say that he escaped detection because Elijah came, appeared to them as a prostitute, and embraced Rabbi Meir. The Romans who were chasing him said, heaven forbid that this Rabbi Meir, he would not act in that manner. Kamarak Atalibavel Ika de Amri Mehamas Maase Ika de Amri Maase de Bruria. Rabbi Meir arose, fled, and arrived in Babylonia. The Gemara notes there are those who say that he fled because of this incident, and there are those who say that he fled due to embarrassment for the incident involving his wife Bruria. Tanu Rabanan haolech leitztadinin ulecharkom birasham et nechashim et achar barim bukyon umukyon umulyon velulyon belurin salgurin הרי זה מושב לצים. עליהם הכתוב אומר, אשרי האיש אשר לא הלך, וגומר, כי אם בתורת אדוני חפצו. הלמדת שהדברים הללו מביאים את האדם לידי ביטול תורה. The sages taught with regard to one who goes to stadiums where people are killed in contests with gladiators or beasts, or to a camp of besiegers where different forms of entertainment are provided for the besieging army. And he sees there the acts of the diviners and those who cast spells, or the acts of the clowns. known as Bukion or Bukion, or Mulyon, or Lulion, or Belurin, or Salgurin. These are categorized as the seat of the scornful. And with regard to such places, the verse states, "Happy is the man that has not walked in the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the way of sinners, nor sat in the seat of the scornful. His delight is the Torah of the Lord." Psalms 1:1-2. You learn from here that these matters bring a person to dereliction of the study of Torah. Since he had not sat in the seat of the scornful, he would delight in the study of Torah. לפני שצומח ומציל ולחרקום מותר ולפני ישוב מדינה ובלבד שלא יתחשב עמהם ואם יתחשב עמהם אסור כאשר יצטדינים כאשר חרקום החרקום. And the Gemara raised a contradiction from another brayta. One is permitted to go to stadiums because he can scream and save the life of a Jew who would otherwise be killed there. And is permitted to go to a camp of besiegers because at times one can provide the public welfare by petitioning the besiegers and saving the residents of the town, provided that he is not counted as one of them. But if he is counted as one of them, it is prohibited. This is difficult, as there is a contradiction between the statement about attending stadiums in the first brayta and the statement about attending stadiums in the second brayta. And it's similarly difficult as there is a contradiction between the statement about a camp of besiegers in the first brayta and the statement about a camp of besiegers in the second brayta. כאן במתחשב בהם, כאן בשאין מתחשב בהם, אלא הצטדינים כאשר. The Gemara continues. Granted the apparent contradiction between one statement about a camp of besiegers and the other statement about a camp of besiegers is not difficult, as here the first brayta is referring to a case where he is counted as one of them, and there the second brayta is referring to a case where he is not counted as one of them. But with regard to the contradiction between the ruling about attending stadiums in the first brayta and the ruling about attending stadiums in the second brayta, it is difficult. Tanai hi Tanya ein holchim letztadinim b'fnei moshav letzim. Rabbi Natan matir b'fnei shnei dvarim, echad b'fnei shetzorbeach u'matzil, echad b'fnei shemeir eidus ish el asiyah. Gemara answers, this issue is a dispute between Tanaim, as it is taught in a brayta. One may not go to stadiums because they are considered the seat of the scornful. Rabbi Natan permits attending stadiums due to two reasons. One is because he can scream and save the life of someone who would otherwise be killed. And the other one is because even if he cannot save the man's life, he can provide testimony that a woman's husband died, which will enable her to marry again. Tanu Abanan ein holchen la treiatios ule kirkasios b'fnei shemizavlin sham zibul l'avodah Zarah. Divrei Rabbi Meir. והחכמים אומרים, מקום שמזבלין אסור מפני חשד עבודת זרה, ומקום שמזבלין שם אסור מפני מוישב לעצים. The sages taught one may not go to theaters or circuses because they sacrifice offerings there to objects of idol worship. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir, and the rabbis say it is prohibited to go to a place where they sacrifice offerings due to a suspicion of idol worship, and it is also prohibited to go to a place where they do not sacrifice offerings due to being considered the seat of the scornful. My benayu, Amar Bechanina Misura, Nasa Benatan Ika benayu. The Gemara asks, what is the practical difference between the opinion of the rabbis and Rabbi Meir? After all, according to both opinions, it is prohibited to attend theaters or circuses. Rabbi Chanina of Sura said the difference between them arises in the case of one who engaged in business there. According to Rabbi Meir, the prophets are forbidden as the proceeds of idol worship, and Rabbi Meir maintains that the Gentiles certainly worship idols at theaters or circuses. Conversely, according to the rabbis, the prophets are forbidden only if it is established that they worship idols there. Darash Rav Shimon Pazi, Darash Rav Shimon Pazi, Darash Rav Shimon Pazi, nine. My dechtiv. Ashrei sheshelo halach b'aseh sheshoim min dechotem amad v'ashrei shelo Yehoshua. Chimiachar shelo halach heichan amad, umiachar shelo yamad heichan yashav, umiachar shelo yeshiv heichan latz. Apropos the earlier discussion of the evils of scornfulness, the Gemara cites several statements that criticize such behavior. Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi taught, what is the meaning of that which is written? Happy is the man that has not walked in the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the way of sinners, nor sat in the seat of the scornful. Psalm 1:1. Since he did not walk in the counsel of the wicked, how could he stand with them? And since he did not stand, how could he sit with them? Since he did not sit with them, how could he scorn? Since he never joined the company of the wicked, he would have no reason to be involved with them in any manner. Rather, the verse serves to say to you that if you walk with the wicked, he will ultimately stand with them. And if you stood with them, he will ultimately sit in their company. And if he sat, he will ultimately scorn along with them. And if he scorned, the verse says about him, if you are wise for yourself. And if you scorn, you alone shall bear it. Proverbs 9:12. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Kol hamit lotzetz isurin boyin alav shenema, ve'ata al titzlotzu pen yechzeku mosrechem. Amar lehu Rabbi Rabbanon b'vituta ve'en aminaychu dila titzlotzetzu dila ve'etze dila ve'to alaychu isurin. Rabbi Eliezer says concerning anyone who scoffs, suffering will befall him, as it is stated, now therefore do not be scoffers, lest your suffering be made strong, Isaiah 20:22. Similarly, Rabbi said to the sages who were sitting before him, please, I ask of you that you do not scoff, so that suffering will not befall you. And we left off with the saying that the verse serves to say that if somebody walked with the wicked, he would ultimately stand with them, and stood with them, ultimately sit, and then ultimately scorn. And if scorn, the verse says, if you are wise for yourself, and if you scorn, you alone shall bear it. Proverbs 9:12. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Kol hamitloitz isurim boin olav, shenema v'ata al titloitzatzu, pen yechzekut mois rechem. Amar lehu Rabbi Rabbanon b'matusa be'ena minaychu dila titlotzatzu dilo leto alaychu isurim. Rabbi Eliezer says concerning anyone who scoffs, suffering will befall him. As it is stated, now therefore do not be scoffers, lest your suffering be made strong, Isaiah 28:22. Similarly, Rabbi says to the sages who were sitting before him, please, I ask of you that you not scoff, so that suffering will not befall you. Amar Rav Katina, Kol hamitloitzis mizono yosef mima'atin, shene'emar, v'shach yado et lotzetzim. Amar Rav Shimon ben Lakish, Kol hamitloitzis noifel b'gehenom, shene'emar, זד יהיר לץ שמו עושה בעברת זדון, ואין עברה אלא גיהנום, שנאמר יום עברה hayom hahu. Rav Katina says concerning anyone who scoffs, his sustenance is lessened. As it is stated, he stretches out his hand with scorners. Hosea 7:5, meaning that God withdraws his providence from scoffers and does not provide for them. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, anyone who scoffs falls into Gehenna. As it is stated, a proud and haughty man, scorner is his name, he acts in arrogant wrath. Proverbs 21:24. And wrath means nothing other than Gehenna, as it is stated, with regard to the day of judgment. That day is a day of wrath. Zephaniah 1:15. אמר רבי יהושע, כל המתייהר נופל בגיהנום, שנאמר, זד יאיר לעץ שמו, עושה בעברת זדון, אין עברה אלא גיהנום, שנאמר, יום עברה היום ההוא. אמר רבי חנילאי בר חנילאי, כל המתלוצץ קורם קליע לעולם, שנאמר, ואתה אל תתלוצצו, פן יחזקו מועשריכם, כי חלב ונחלצו שמעתי. Rabbi Yehoshua says, based on the same verse, anyone who is haughty falls into Gehenna. As it is stated, a proud and haughty man, scorner is his name, he acts in arrogant wrath. Proverbs 21:24. And wrath means nothing other than Gehenna, as it is stated, the day of wrath. The day is the day of wrath. Zephaniah 1:15. Rabbi Chanilai says, anyone who scoffs causes extermination to be brought upon the world, as is stated. Now therefore, do not be scoffers, lest your suffering be made strong. For an extermination wholly determined have I heard from the Lord, the God of hosts, upon the whole land. Isaiah 28:22. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, kashehi shetchilato yesurim, v'sofer kaliha. Darash Shimon ben Pazi, אשרי האיש אשר לא הלך לתרתיות ולקרקסיות של גויים, ודרך הטוב נעמד זה שלא עמד בגיון. ומשה בן יהושע זה שיהושע בטח בולוס. Rabbi Eliezer says scoffing is a severe sin, as at first one is punished with suffering and ultimately one is punished with extermination. Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi taught, happy is the man that has not walked in the counsel of the wicked. This is referring to the theaters and circuses of Gentiles, nor stood in the way of sinners. This is referring to one who has not stood as an observer at bestial contests, nor sat in the seat of the scornful. This is referring to one who has not sat in the bad company of people who engage in scoffing and jeering. Shema yomar adam, hoil v'lo halachti teratiot, ולקרקסיות, ולא עמדתי בקנגיון, אלך ואתגרה בשינה. Lest a person say, since I did not go to theaters and circuses, and did not stand in bestial contests, I will go and indulge in sleep. The verse states, and he meditates in his law day and night. Psalms 1, verse 2. This demonstrates that it's not sufficient to simply avoid transgressions. Rather, it's necessary to engage actively in Torah study. אמר רב שמואל בר נחמני, אמר רב יונתן, אשרי האיש אשר לא הרבה עשה רשעים. The Gemara relates an alternative homiletic interpretation of the verse discussed above. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani says, Rabbi Yonatan says, happy is the man that has not walked in the counsel of the wicked. Psalms 1 verse 1. This is, we continued, God willing, next time.